Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Seth. I work here in SBCU. Today we're going to be talking about the Vado. It's an exciting new bike of ours. I hope you guys are excited. We most certainly are very excited here. We have some special guests with us today that are going to talk about the Vado, and then afterwards we're going to answer questions that you guys may have. So as we're going through this presentation, in the live chat down at the bottom, put any questions you might have, and myself, Saul, or Marco will address those at the end. Before we get to talking about Vado, there are a couple things about Specialized that are very important that I want you guys to understand. First off, we're a California company. We most certainly operate globally, but we're headquartered right here in the United States. The second thing is we're a company filled with passionate cyclists. We love bikes, everything about them, whether it be mountain, road, track, doesn't matter. Anything with two wheels, we're passionate about. And it's exciting to work around people that love bikes so much. So I said we're a global company. And about 10 years ago, we started to get global demand from riders asking for e-bikes. Not just any e-bikes, but we had riders that wanted a Specialized e-bike. And as some of you guys may know, as true cyclists, we were a little bit reluctant to get in with that. It's easy to think we're real cyclists. These are e-bikes. They're not real bikes. That's not the case, but that was our mindset a while ago. And so as we started to develop these bikes, as we started to work on our pedal assist bikes, we scrutinized these more than anything else we were making, more than a tarmac, more than a stump jumper, because our skepticism forced us to put the highest standards on these bikes. This wasn't just going to be an e-bike like all the other e-bikes. This was going to be the best e-bike out there. This was going to be an e-bike for cyclists, a bike that cyclists would want to ride. So in 2012, we came out with our Turbo S. This was our Halo on-road pedal assist bike. It was a blast to ride. I can't tell you how big the smile I had the first time I hopped on it, and it was so cool you just watch riders as they get on and give a pedal, and you see the excitement because what it puts out, you can't help but smile. So we started with the Turbo S, and as we grew our line of pedal assist bikes, we've changed our naming a little bit. I want you guys to understand how our Turbo family is now. So we've changed Turbo from being a model-specific name to actually the name for the entire family. Anything you see pedal assist from Specialized is Turbo. So underneath that, there's the Levo and the Vado. The Levo being our mountain bike, the Vado being our on-road bike. Anything else pedal assist from us you see in the future will have this Turbo name as well. So whatever it is, I want you to know a few things about our Turbo philosophy and something that stands true for every single Turbo bike that we make. The first thing, what's the most foundational piece of these bikes is the handling. This bike needs to ride like a bike. Doesn't matter whether it's on-road, off-road, it needs to ride amazing. So if you can whip your stump jumper sideways, you most certainly should be able to whip that Levo sideways right here like Dylan Dunkerton's doing, because they ride the exact same. The second thing we work on is integration. So once we have the bike handling and riding like we want, we take the technology and we integrate it in the most seamless way possible, whether that's for aesthetics or whether that's for function. So you most certainly can believe the idea of just taking a bicycle frame and bolting on a battery and bolting on a motor was not anything we were going to be a part of. We wanted to make this custom from the ground up so that the motor, the battery, the display, all those things were integrated nice and neat into the bike so it looked and rode beautifully. The last thing is range. We want this bike to go as far as possible. So whether that be with our Mission Control app that you can tune your ride with, the ease of adjusting between modes, whether it be from a display, from a remote, down on your down tube. It's very simple to change between modes. And then also using the highest technology available to us for batteries so that we can ensure these bikes are going as far, as fast as they possibly can. So that's the Turbo philosophy. That's what we believe in for Turbo, and that's what holds true for every single Turbo bike that we have. Now let's get into the Vado. This bike, it's you, only faster. That couldn't be any more true. It feels like riding a bike just with someone riding behind you, pushing you the whole way, or just a nice tailwind pushing you as you're pedaling. So when we started our Turbo line, we built an entirely new office in Switzerland that was laser focused on everything turbo. There's geniuses that we have working for us. I think these guys should probably be working at NASA, but instead they're engineering bikes for us, and it's pretty awesome because you and I get to benefit from some bikes that ride pretty well. So I have Marco Sondriger. He is a product manager who's joining us from Switzerland right now. He's going to talk to you guys about the Vado and some of the cool technology about this. So he's joining us from Switzerland. It's 9 in the evening there. Thank you, Marco, for staying up late. Let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Seth. The handling was the most important piece for us, to be honest. When we had the very original Turbo S, it was a harsh bike, to be honest. It rode like a tank. I'm quite frankly honest, and it wasn't quite the way we wanted it to be. And with the next generation bike, we said the handling needs to be still very stable and very precise, but much different to what we originally did with Turbo S. The Turbo S was very likely overbuilt with too much aluminum, I guess, and heavy frame and a heavy rear hub and a pretty stiff fork. So the handling was great. It was just a bit sharp. And with the Vado, we achieved a very stable ride, but much more comfortable, I would say. It's an amazing difference we were able to achieve. So I would say give it a try and ride it, and you will feel the geometry slightly different too. The stack and reach, we adjusted to the latest findings we have with SBCU. So that's pretty cool. We have obviously body geometry touch points, and we have this very smooth delivery of the power, which is something was very key to our team here in Switzerland, that we actually paired the bike with a motor which runs very smooth. When you're actually cruising down the street, I would say at the very beginning, you already forget that you're riding an e-bike because you don't hear the motor and you don't feel the motor. The feeling is especially something that we're super proud of, because that motor doesn't have any vibration. So you don't really feel anything in the saddle or pedals, which again makes you forget that you ride the bike, and it really makes you feel you only faster. So on the handling side of things, a lot of things happened. And just try it out around your neighborhood, and I would bet you feel the difference right away. So the next thing we did is the integration. When you look at the Turbo Vado, you realize quickly that we ended up painting the battery and painting the covers in the same color scheme as the frame, which makes the bike look even less of an e-bike than it used to be, because having everything in color and being able to change those covers out quite easily, we can integrate things, at least for the eye, much better. The integration we did was mainly for the battery and the motor. On the battery side, we have 40 cells, and the battery actually is future built, which means the battery inside has spacing for different cells. So in the cell makers, the same cells, by the way, are used by Tesla cars. The cell makers have different watt hours per cell, and we made the battery big enough so it can actually fit with future cells. And one of those future cells we're using at the 5.0 and 6.0, which boosts us to 604 watt hours. The nice thing about this, again, future-ready cell pack is that whatever comes out in the near future, we have the space for it, and we can actually upgrade the watt hours if new cells come to market and are available. So that's actually quite a cool feature, which means the bike ages less. And if a rider in a couple of years out wants to have an upgraded battery pack, you could certainly buy it and pair it with the bike. Just like similar we did with the very original Turbo, the future battery packs were backwards compatible to the very original bikes.
No Q&A?
Am I going too fast? I guess not. So the interesting thing about the Turbo Vado is the battery removal. This time we decided to go 45 degrees on the outside, which means it allowed us to have a women's specific bike build or frame build with a lower standover and actually a step entrance through the frame, which was key because the number one feedback, at least for the European spoken market we got on Turbo, is that we need to have a proper bike for the female rider. And with changing the battery design coming from a 45-degree angle, we were able to build such frame, and they're actually able to lower the center of gravity even further. The interesting thing, if you have a rider trying the Turbo Vado, just make sure you explain him real quick how battery goes in, because if they happen to have a turbo, original one turbo, then they might be confused and may think the battery comes from the top, but actually comes slightly from the side in a 45-degree angle. Then the battery is locked with an ABUS key. ABUS may be not a company you're so familiar with, but it's a major lock maker from Germany. ABUS also makes frame locks, and those frame locks would technically be, if you can get them in the US, compatible with the key. So with the key card, you could, at ABUS in the US, order a matching lock for the frame. So just find out if your local ABUS guys have the ability to get you matching locks. And of course, the battery needed to be very waterproof. So we ended up with IP66 protection, which is almost high pressure. We still don't recommend high pressure, obviously, but at least you don't really need to be worried about the rain and putting the bike on a car and driving on the highway if it is raining. I know some of you guys are in a lucky spot in America where there's like 340 days of sunshine. We here get a lot of rain. So the next thing we want to talk about, and guys, feel free to ask questions during that live chat. It seems like it's functioning, the live chat, but not the PowerPoint. So the next thing I want to talk about is the turbo motor. Most of you probably know the Turbo Levo motor. The Turbo Vado motor comes from the same maker, which is something we decided on because that Turbo Levo motor is something we can be really proud of to have on our bikes, because that smooth and quiet feel is something no one else has, to be honest. And it comes through mainly through that belt. The motor inside has a planetary gear, and then it goes straight on the belt, and the belt actually powers the crank spindle. And so with that belt in between, you get all the vibration and noise out of the planetary gear. Basically, it doesn't submit the noise over to your crankshaft and or to your spindle, and makes the bike ride a hell lot smoother and less noisy compared to any other bottom bracket motor. So that's a major benefit, and really makes you feel like it's you only faster. If we hate one thing here in Switzerland, it's noisy things, and if anything, your bike shouldn't be noisy and should be quiet and smooth. The motor has a slightly different tune compared to the Turbo Levo. It's slightly less aggressive, I would say, with acceleration, meaning if you crank down the pedals, you have less of a harsh start. You could do the same tuning with the Turbo Levo via the Mission Control app, but with this Turbo Vado, we decided that basically from the factory delivery, we're having a less fast acceleration, which is done because we wanted to have the bike a more stable, more safe rides in the city use. We want to make sure that you're not ending up in traffic and getting hit by a semi truck and dying on the streets because your motor put you in there. So the tuning is slightly different. You can still fine tune it, obviously, coming in fall via the Mission Control app. So if any questions on the motor, just feel free to live chat with us if you want to know more about it. Have more things. I'm happy to go much deeper on the motor side of things. What we learned, the learning lesson we had was that obviously electric motors, they get hot, right? Because they produce electricity. And one thing we realized on the Turbo Vado, you're going at a fast enough speed that it makes sense to open up some of the lower covers to get some active airflow going. So we ended up doing some studies, how much air we need to get in and how much air we need to get out, not to slow down the bike. And well, it's too bad that we cannot show you a picture, but if you look at the Vado on the underside of the lower motor cover, you see there's some slots, and there's some lower slots where basically air goes in, cools down the engine, and then hot air goes out. Again, the next couple of weeks, you'll get some bikes, and you can look at this in details. But the air vent is definitely something which increases and stabilizes the motor output because it keeps it at a sweet spot of temperature. And in this case, with a more stable motor, you have a higher efficiency at the end of the day because the motor likes to operate in a temperature sweet spot. Another very nice thing we did is the specialized lights. So these Turbo Vado bikes come with our custom e-bike specific LED lights, front and rear. The front light is integrated nicely in the handlebar or below basically the stem. You can adjust it in different angles. And there's two options. Both are basically compatible, but one option on the Vado 3.0 has about 300 lumens or 180 lux. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these numbers. If not, you can look them up. It's quite a very strong bright light, and the 5.0 and 6.0 has 600 lumen, so even more. But the most special thing about the Vado lights is that the lens technology we have chosen here is an aspheric lens, which is, when you look at it closely, it's almost like, now I'm missing the English word, it's a very special lens technology. It's not a reflector. It's coming basically from the motorcycle industry. Harley Davidson and others use this roundish lens, and what it does, it gives you a very nice illuminated field of view. So you have a nicer view on the ground than what the reflectors usually do. They have a less smooth output on the street. So the aspheric lens is something we basically got the idea from the motorcycle industry and implemented it for the very first time in bikes. So something really cool. Then the rear light is a very similar technology story there. We're using a light guide. A light guide is what you might know from the modern cars, you know, when they have those fancy rear lights and one LED shines in from the side but illuminates a whole stripe. That's basically what it's called, a light guide. You can, with one LED, illuminate a whole circle of basically a tail light, and it's super bright and very visible from a side view perspective. So two interesting things are our front and rear lights. Check it out, and you'll see more. Then the Vado Mission Control app. I am very proud that we're working on this. I'm very disappointed that we haven't been able to deliver it with the first production or delivery of the bike. Again, we're unfortunately running a bit late with the integration. It's obviously not that easy to make apps for phones, and you have to run through different processes with Android and Apple for approval process and things like it. And since we're using Bluetooth on the bike, in certain countries, you have to do different applications and so on and so on. So the app is slightly delayed. It's coming out though, we're committed to it. And with the app, if you know it from the Turbo Levo, you have a bunch of very nice features. You can tune your modes and customize the motor, and less range anxiety with the smart control features. So the app, it's a little bit delayed, but we're committed. It's coming out. Obviously, it's retrofittable to the bike. So if you have a bike now, it doesn't matter. Once the app is out, Bluetooth is turned on and it goes live. Then the display and the remote for the Turbo Vado, we ended up with doing a lot of thinking of what is really needed for a display control unit, and how big does it need to be to give you all the functions and visibility. One thing we realized is quite easily that if you ride such bike in the sunlight, in the daylight, the standard LCD displays are actually not really visible, because the more light a standard LCD display gets, the less bright it becomes. So we ended up choosing a display which is made by the company Swatch. Swatch is the display itself was made by Swatch. Swatch is obviously a Swiss watchmaker, and they have smart watches, and they designed or developed an LCD display which is translucent, which means the more light you get on it, the brighter the sunshine gets, the more visible the LCD becomes, which is actually a really cool thing, because we ride these bikes outside and not inside the store. So be careful. If you end up showing the Turbo Vado inside your bike store, the display might not look that bright. As soon as you take it to a window, or you take it outside on the streets in the sunshine, you'll realize that the translucent display becomes very, very bright and very visible in the direct sunlight. So that's something we're quite proud of. Obviously, the display in this case has the Bluetooth functions, and there's a little remote button right next to the grip. That remote was designed in a way that you actually never have to look down on your handlebar. So when you feel it with your thumb, it's almost like the command post lever. When you feel it with your thumb, you know exactly what is minus, what is plus, where is set, and you it's quite intuitive, to be honest. It's one of the most intuitive remotes we have come up with, and something we can be quite proud of to put into the market. The top of the bike line, the 5.0 and 6.0 even have TFT screens. So the difference between LCD and TFT obviously is the TFT's color, and TFT runs on Android. LCD is pre-burned, so you cannot easily change the segments. The TFT is like a smartphone, and it will allow us to change in the near future any and everything on it with software updates. And we can implement more and more features throughout the year. So the very first TFT displays may have not the full feature pack, but developers are constantly working in adding more features like different trips and maps and GPS and all kinds of stuff. So basically the nice thing about this, it's like almost like a smartphone. You know, you now and then have a very nice update, and it enables you much more features. So with the TFT displays, which is on the 5.0 and 6.0, we can update the whole thing, the whole unit, even the look of it, anything and everything. So displays are actually quite amazing and quite cool what we came out with. I think that is it from my side here. I'm very happy to answer questions. Maybe real quick about the Swiss office. It's not just a mailbox here. We're actually about 15 people in the engineering and development team. And we have 3 industrial designers constantly working on the industrial design improvements. We have an army of engineers. We have electronic engineers. We have mechanical engineers. We have electronic mechanical engineers. We have app engineers working on the app. So it's a full-on dedicated, committed team to e-bikes, and we're working full speed on the future. And we're committed to this, and we've seen it with the Levo, now with the Vado, and you can only imagine what's next. So thank you for listening, and ask questions if you have any.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Marco. And we're going to take questions at the end. So for anybody don't leave. You're not done yet. We still need you at the end for questions. Guys, we've had a little bit of technical difficulty. So those of you guys that are watching, thank you. This video will go to our YouTube channel afterwards. So anybody that's not watching right now, you can have the full version shortly. Right now, I'd like to bring up someone who has a lot of experience with e-bikes at retail. This is Saul Lakin. He is our market developer. And Saul, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
As Seth said, I'm Saul Lakin. I am the market developer for the greater New York City area. Shout out to all my retailers in Territory 36. I'll see you guys in a couple of days. I really love this slide because it shows the Turbo Vado in its natural habitat, and it demonstrates Specialized commitment to riders and experiences of all kinds. But who is the Turbo rider? Well, up until this point, our industry has decided that e-bike riders are going to be aging cyclists who, for whatever reason, can't pedal anymore and need a little electric assistance. Specialized has challenged ourselves, and today I want to challenge all of you to expand your definition of a potential Vado rider to include riders of all ages, sizes, and geographic locations. Many of these riders are going to be new to the bike shop and the bike shopping experience, and a lot of them haven't ridden since childhood. So make sure to be welcoming to any riders that walk through your door. Now that we know that these riders are a little bit different than your run-of-the-mill bike shop customer, we have to ask ourselves, is selling an e-bike any different? And the answer, of course, is yes and no. Some of the lessons I'm going to talk about right now, many of you are doing already in your stores across the world, and some of them are brand new to electric bikes. First up, you simply cannot convert a sale on a Turbo Vado without the excitement and enthusiasm that can only come from a shop champion. Specialized will work with you and the champion of your choosing to provide a Vado experience that they can share with the rest of your staff and any riders coming into the door. Next, make sure that you dedicate floor space to this experience. The Turbo Vado looks and feels pretty similar to a cross trail, but do not be tempted to merchandise these bikes at the end of the line of cross trails in your store. Same goes for Levos. Just because they're both part of the Turbo family does not mean they're the exact same experience. So make sure to dedicate different floor space to each model in the family. Also, be sure to offer an entire breadth of our product line so that you can meet riders' needs at every level. And you want to be sure to offer S-card financing. Many of these riders are looking at the Vado as a tool of transportation, so they're going to be comparing this purchase to that of a car or a monthly transit pass. Offering S-card financing is an easy way for you to break down this total cost into easy-to-digest monthly payments. It'll especially help you if you advertise the price of the bike in the form of these monthly payments. The number one question that you're going to get about the Turbo Vado is how long will the battery last? We like to call that range anxiety, and even some of the most relaxed riders, like Matt Hunter, can get range anxiety. So Specialized has developed the best-in-class tools to address this concern, starting with the Mission Control app that Marco has already told you a little bit about. As he mentioned, this app is fully functional for the Turbo Levo and is coming soon for the Turbo Vado, and it will allow you to tune the motor and battery to extend the battery life. In the meantime, use the display that Marco told us about to adjust modes and monitor battery life to preserve your juice. Additionally, we offer a travel charger, a pint-sized version of our charger that your riders can carry on their rear rack or in their bag so that they can stay charged on the go, and additional batteries that they can stash at the office or at the gym or anywhere around town so they can stay charged up. Another big question is, where can I ride these bikes legally? Hopefully all of you are familiar with People for Bikes, but you may not know that their website offers the best resource for e-bike laws around the country. Go there to find out the e-bike laws in your state and educate yourselves so that you can educate your riders. Now that you're on your way to selling these bikes, there's going to be one last issue you're going to have to address, which is how to service and take care of your riders. Who remembers how to do a software update on the first generation turbos? It's a real pain in the butt. Well, I am very happy to tell you that for the Turbo Vado, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Simply get the display on the bike, plug it into your computer, go to our diagnostic website, and voila. You should make sure to update the software when you build the bike for the sales floor, and again, before it leaves the shop with your new rider. This is so you can input some important rider data onto the bike, and so you can set the Turbo Vado's service indicator light at the mileage of your choosing. This light will then go off when the bike reaches that mileage so that the rider will be invited back to your store for a tune-up. Very similar to the service indicator light on your car. And what does the mechanic do when the service indicator light goes off on your car? They plug in a diagnostic tool to figure out exactly what's going on. So it's important that you invest in the Turbo Diagnostic tool, which works across the Turbo family to help you service these bikes. Additionally, we encourage you to carry our service kit, which is full of small parts that will allow you to get riders back on the road. And it would even be good to carry an additional battery and maybe even additional motor to get riders back in the saddle as quickly as possible. As always, make sure to check the Specialized service site to educate yourself on how to service these bicycles. And if you can't find what you need there, reach out to our dedicated Turbo Rider Care representative for any additional questions you may have. Thanks so much, and I'm going to kick it back to Seth to wrap us up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saul. All right, we're ready to sell Vados now, right?
We sure are.
I think so. So we got a couple questions that have came through, and first one, it's going to be for Marco. Marco, you ready for this? We have somebody asking, what's the deal with switching from a hub motor to a bottom bracket motor? Why do we do that?
There's actually a couple reasons why we did it, but the thing is, every time I talk about it, then it sounds like the hub motor is so bad. The hub motor was not particularly bad, but the hub motor has one major problem, or a couple difficulties. Which first one is it is kind of a heater. It produces more heat than efficiency, and making a hub motor very efficient is very difficult because an electric engine will spin at very high RPM. With that, I mean like 25,000 revolutions per minute. And the hub motor only spins as fast as the rear wheel, which is anything between 0 to 500 if you go really fast. And no electric motor likes to go that slow. And if an electric motor actually spins that slow, it's very inefficient. And if an inefficient motor produces heat and in this case less energy and gives you less range. A hot motor, we have a planetary gear in there, and our gear ratio on our motor is 1 to 25. So whatever you put in as a rider, if you put in like cadence 80, take that cadence 80 and times 25. So that means the motor inside, the electric motor inside, spins at 2,000 per minute. And at 2,000 per minute, you have a much higher efficiency. You produce less heat, and you need less energy to have the same range. So that basically is the number one reason was efficiency, and in this case also climbing strength. And it's still very smooth. So the very first turbo we did because it was smooth. And at that time, there was no BB motor which had the same feel. We found one, and that's what we're using. I hope that answers the question. Hot motors are still great. They still feel great. If you look at everything, the BB motor has quite a bit more of advantages.
That's good. Thank you, Marco. And there's one more question for you. I know, Saul, you talked about range anxiety, and we have all the technologies to manage that range anxiety. But Marco, if someone were to just flat out ask you, how far can I ride my Vado? How long can I ride? What's that answer? Because I know there's a lot of variables and it's a gray area, but what would you say?
It's a super gray area. I would probably say just try it out. And I just got one to my mom and to my dad, and they both had anxiety about they started quickly realizing that as long as they ride flat, they absolutely use no energy. As soon as they start climbing mountains, they use energy. And the mom was worried. And I told her, when you start at the house and you go out on a ride, you can only climb as much as you descend, because you always come back to the same position you started, right? So you climb as much as you descend. So if you climb all the way up to somewhere and you have only 20% battery left, don't be worried about still getting home, because your home is all going to be downhill. And she's like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. So that's something you need to consider when you talk about bikes too. You always go down as much as you go up, right? Which maybe helps people understanding. But to answer the questions in miles, we in Switzerland have kilometers per hour. So I need to do a quick calculation here. So my mom and dad, they go 100 kilometers on an average terrain, and their average weight and all that. What is that in miles? They go that quite easily and have about 20% left. So if you want to have 20% left and you feel good about climbing, probably now feet again, like 2,500 foot. And you can do 65 miles. You could do much more if you stay on the flat and you become much aero position and all that. So I would say the range is anywhere between 60 to 100 miles if you ride in eco mode, right? Let me see, miles and kilometer. I think 100 miles is actually on the long side, so I'm not sure if you can make that. Depends if you're super lightweight, you're only going on the flat and you're only riding in eco mode. Other companies with the same amount of watt hours, they claim they can do 160 kilometer. I bet it's possible, but it needs to be flat. It shouldn't be tall headwinds, and you should be quite lightweight. So what you need to understand is, and I once explained this in a different way. So we all like to shower. Well, I sometimes don't, but anyway, if you shower, there's two ways to shower. You can, crank it all up, and there's a lot of water coming out of that shower faucet, or you go, save the planet, right? Only like rinse a little bit. And that's the same you can do with the motor. If you ride in eco mode, you're basically rinsing, right? You only consume little energy off the battery. If you go in turbo mode, it's like your shower all the way open, and it's so much water that you almost flood your whole bathroom. And that's the two differences. How you can explain it to people is like, hey, if you ride in eco mode, just think of it, showering on an eco and just only little, and turbo is all in, right? And the difference is major. It's massive. You drain that Vado in the turbo mode very quickly. If you stay in eco, you have much more range. I hope that makes sense.
That does. Thank you, Mark. And I think really what you said at the beginning is, for this bike, it's the most important thing is just ride it. Go out there, feel it, and you can't help but have fun. And really, it's you only faster. This certainly holds true to this bike. So I'm going to put an email address on the screen for you guys. This is a direct contact for Sal Lakin. If you have any questions about the Vado, any questions about how you can do better with the Vado in your store, please do not hesitate to shoot this man an email right here, saul.lakin@specialized.com. Lastly, with these Vados, guys, we want to be very clear with you guys that you are riding these where it's legal. Saul talked about People for Bikes and how good of a resource that is. Use that. Make sure you're educating your riders of where they can take these bikes and where they can ride them legally. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Look forward to talking to you guys in the future. Thank you.